The Boston Tea Party, colonists taking a stand against the British. The Boston Tea Party was a stand by the colonists on the British to express the anger of the Tea Act of 1773. The Tea Act of 1773 was an act by Parliament to get the East India Tea Company out of debt. It puts them a monopoly on tea in the American colonies. The anger of the colonists started in the 1760s with the Townshend Acts. In 1767, the English Parliament passes the Townshend Acts, imposing new series of taxes on the colonists to pay for the cost of administrating and protecting the American colonies, items such as paper, tea, glass, lead, and paints. This is Charles Townshend. He is the creator of the Townshend Act. He's the one that presented the Townshend Act to the English Parliament. The Sons of Liberty was a group that was founded on August 1765. Sons of Liberty was a group formed to protect colonist rights and fat taxation by the British government. The taxation that Sons of Liberty was fighting in the Boston Tea Party was the Tea Act of 1773. This was an act that Parliament put on the American colonists that forced them to pay an extra tax on tea to get the East India British Company out of debt. Join or Die is a political cartoon created by Benjamin Franklin. This political cartoon tells the story of the colonists. It says that you will join the colonists in the fight for their freedom and rights, or they will kill you if you try to get in their way and keep them from achieving their goal. This is Samuel Adams. Samuel Adams is the founder of the Sons of Liberty. He is one of the main ones that organized the Boston Tea Party. The Tea Act of 1773 was one of the main boiling points of the Boston Tea Party. The act consisted of it was a tax put on tea for a monopoly that put an extra tax on the East India British Company's tea to get it out of debt. So it was like one of the only teas being sold plus with an extra tax that's on it. It was midnight of December 16, 1773 in the Boston Harbor. People from the Sons of Liberty, dressed as Mohawk Indians, came aboard 3 British ships and dumped out 340 chests of tea. They did this in a rebellion act of the Tea Act of 1773. The action that they took cost British over millions of dollars. These people did this because of the unfair treatment of the king and parliament on the colonists. This was unfair because it forced the colonists to pay an extra tax on tea just to get the East India British Company out of debt. It's taxation without representation, because the colonists didn't have no say about this tax on tea at all. This tax was put on them by Parliament just to get this East India British Company out of debt. When the Sons of Liberty found out about this tax was in place on the colonists, they felt like it was up to them to take it upon themselves to defend the colonists' rights, because this was taxation without representation. So the colonists had no say-so about this tax. They couldn't vote or complain about it, or they would get in trouble or something. So this is when the Sons of Liberty started to develop a plan for the Boston Tea Party, and then they took that plan and put it into actions. And that's the main reason why the Boston Tea Party happened like it did. There were short and long-term effects of the Boston Tea Party. And the short-term effects, which we're going to talk about first, is the Intolerable Acts. There were 5 intolerable acts: the Boston Port Act, the Massachusetts Government Act, Administration Justice Act, Quartering Act of 1774, and the Quebec Act. The Boston Port Act of 1774 was an act to discontinue in such manner and for such time as are therein mentioned the landing and discharging, lading of shipping of goods, wares, and merchandise at the town and within the harbor of Boston in the province of Massachusetts Bay in North Carolina. The Boston Port Act closed the port of Boston so tightly that the colonists could not bring hay from Charleston to give their starving horses. The next act in these Horrible Acts was the Massachusetts Government Act, an act for the better regulating the government of province of the Massachusetts Bay in New England. The Massachusetts Government Act put an end to the Constitution of Massachusetts. Only one town meeting was permitted a year in Massachusetts unless approved by the governor. Town officials would no longer be elected. They were to be appointed by the royal governor. The executive council would no longer be elected but appointed by the king. The Massachusetts Government Act revoked the colony's 1691 character. After this act was the Administration Justice Act. The Administration Justice Act suspended the right of self-government in the Massachusetts colony by allowing the newly appointed military governor to send rebellious colonists for trial in other colonies or in Great Britain to be heard by the British judge. The next act was the Quartering Act of 1774. The 1689 Immunity Act gave Britain the right to quarter troops in barracks and public houses in the colonies. The Quartering Act of 1765 went even farther. The Quartering Act of 1765 added that if no accommodation was available in the barracks and public houses, British troops could also be housed in a variety of additional locations such as inns, alley houses, private homes of those selling wine or alcohol, livery stables, uninhabited homes, outbuildings such as barns. The Quartering Act of 1765 also required colonial governments to absorb the costs associated with quartering British troops, which included food, shelter, bedding, cooking utensils, firewood, salt, vinegar, beer or cider, and candles. After the Quartering Act of 1774 came the Quebec Act. The Quebec Act extended the province of Quebec to include territory west to the Mississippi, north to the Hudson Bay Territory, and the islands in the mouth of St. Lawrence. Passed religious reforms that were highly favorable to the Catholic majority in Quebec and allowed Catholics to hold public offices. The religious reforms were designed to boost the loyalty of the King's Canadian subjects in the face of growing resistance in the American colonies, and denied the right to an elected legislative assembly. The Quebec Act was perceived as a new model for British colonial administration. As a result of the Quebec Act, the American revolutionaries failed to gain the support of the Canadians during the American Revolution. To wrap everything up, the Sons of Liberty attacked the Boston Harbor, dumped 340 chests of tea out into the harbor in a fight for taxation, not representation, to go against the Tea Act 1773. Now, as a result of that, England passes the Intolerable Acts, which closes the Boston Harbor and does all these other things until the fully crossed of 340 chests of tea was paid for.